The domestic production of silver, which amounts to 2,000 tons, is primarily allocated for military purposes. To put this in perspective, the 46,000 tons of silver used by the military is equivalent to 23 years of silver mining effort. This staggering figure underscores the significant role of silver in our military operations. Remember, 46,000 tons of silver is 1.472 billion ounces of silver. Last year's entire annual demand was 1.21 billion ounces. That's more than the entire annual demand for last year alone. This week's specials for Miles Franklin are 1 ounce 2023 silver Krugerrands only $3.10 over spot, along with backdated 10th ounce gold maples for only $29 over melt. We have new specials every single Monday, affordable prices, and one of the largest inventories of precious metals I've personally ever seen. Email me, slayer@milesfranklin.com, or call me at 330-485-6172. That is 330-485-6172. Now let's jump into the video. I'm about to show you some data that is truly mind-blowing. It's almost hard to believe. See, the silver shortage has layers. It's a deep rabbit hole. There's the mainstream surface level information that the Silver Institute's going to give us about solar panels, which photovoltaic cells, PV cells used in solar panels, or EVs, silver lithium ion batteries, 5G towers. But then there's a much deeper, more sinister layer, which is military, the Defense Department. The amount of silver used for military purposes that the Silver Institute doesn't even incorporate in their annual numbers. And that's what this article breaks down. And once you truly understand that these numbers have been deceptive, that there truly is more silver used in military than photovoltaics and EVs combined, then you start to see the bigger picture. And this goes back to the 1940s. This is what we're going to talk about. 46,000 tons of silver for war purposes. That's the same weight as 23 years of silver mining effort. The silver shortage began in the 1940s and has worsened. Silverwars.org is a research project that started about 6 months ago, which I covered in a separate video. Our thesis is that silver manipulators rigged the price of silver by setting a ceiling or interfering with free market forces. Once we had a hypothesis, we had to find the data to support it. And that's where, and I'm going to try not to stop and pause too much because this is some great information that I just want to share, but there's always been a missing puzzle piece to the silver shortage, right? I've been covering the shortage, the fundamentals of this diminishing supply and rapidly rising demand for years. But there was always something missing. Like we could say, well, there's something maybe going on behind the scenes, but why though? There wasn't a huge motive. There was always this missing puzzle piece to why silver had such a deep rabbit hole and not other metals, right? We could have argued, well, silver is used for this or that, and then maybe countries needed it more, whatever. The whole point is there was something missing, and then I could literally say the person's name who came out, John Forrest Little, came out and just dropped the hammer and just exploded everything, and it all comes full circle now. It all makes sense now. Like he just mentioned, they had a hypothesis, but they had to find the data to support it, and they did. And he did. So we're going to cover this, and I really want you guys to pay attention to this data and what it means. Not just looking at the data, but looking at what this in return is meaning, it's referring to. Because there's two ways to look at this. Okay, well that's pretty crazy, 46,000 tons of silver for war purposes. That's the same as 23 years of mining effort. But what does that mean for the bigger picture of not only silver, but for the military, of what they're doing, what the Silver Institute's doing? Don't just look at this from okay, this could push silver to triple digits. This is much bigger than just quote unquote silver exploding. If you get what I'm saying. Like I've always talked about, yeah, you make a pretty penny, but at what cost? There's aftermath to this. We're getting to something much bigger than just us making a pretty penny, which is actually quite scary once you see how deep some of these layers go. It's like that iceberg picture There's the tip of the iceberg that you see above water, but then below the water, there's this huge iceberg that is what the majority is missing out on, but what's there. And this is what we're trying to expose. Furthermore, silver's unique properties add to its allure. Its ductility, malleability, and reflectivity, coupled with its superb thermal properties and corrosion resistance, make it stand out amongst other metals. It outperforms all others in severe weather settings such as high humidity, temperature extremes, making it planet Earth's most valuable metal monetarily and industrially. And that's a great way to put it, right? Silver really is. And like back in ancient biblical days, they thought silver was magic. Actually, it is, right? They thought it was this magical metal. And that's back when they thought silver was just as valuable as gold, which it is, if you, in terms of value as something that it's used for, which it is. Back then, the gold to silver ratio, the earliest known one is 2.5 to 1. 2.5 parts silver equals 1 part gold. That's the earliest ratio that I've been able to dig up, but some would say that back in the day, it was a 1-to-1 ratio. Regardless, back then, silver was used as it was thought as magical because it could purify water. You know, silver has antimicrobial properties. It could purify water. You could put silver in milk. It keeps the milk fresh longer. It's the most highly conductive metal for thermal conductivity, electricity, and light sensitivity. We're talking about elements on the periodic table. It's just something to really think about in terms of value. You have gold, it's worth over $2,000 in dollar terms, but then you have silver's $27, when the $27 silver is much more valuable than gold in terms of value that it can bring to the world. So note to silver investors, previous influencers and other silver reports like Silver Institute ignored the massive use of silver in aerospace and military applications, which is much larger than silver's use in solar energy. That is important to notice because solar energy is, on the Silver Institute's numbers, the biggest amount of silver used for our annual numbers. So you'll say, okay, so last year we had 1.2 billion ounces, which was the demand. The number one sector was solar. But they're saying that military and aerospace have used more silver than solar. So what is that telling us? That means 1.2 billion ounces is nowhere near. That's very, very low, which means the supply deficit of 190 million ounces last year is actually much higher. So their point number one, there's 32,000 ounces in a ton. Multiply the mass by 32, or the mass value by 32,000. That means 46,000 tons loaned for military purposes, which we're going to start getting to some of the context here. The domestic production of silver, which amounts to 2,000 tons, is primarily allocated for military purposes. To put this in perspective, the 46,000 tons of silver used by the military is equivalent to 23 years of silver mining effort. This staggering figure underscores the significant role of silver in our military operations. U.S. domestic, which is 46,000 tons of silver, equals 1,472,000,000 ounces of silver, or 1.47 billion ounces. Remember, if the U.S. Treasury is loaning to the U.S. Department of Defense, this merely two bureaucracies is in the same administration working out a deal. It's crucial to note an entrenched pattern revealed by silverwars.org data leaks. The U.S. government, rather than the free market, sets the price of silver. This control raises questions about the dynamics between government policies and free market, a concern that should not be overlooked. You may ask yourself, but the 46,000 tons of silver used by the U.S. military was during World War II. True, but there have been unending wars since then in a dwindling supply environment. There have been 251 conflicts and wars since the 1990s, according to Ben Norton in congressional documents. And there have been 57 undeclared wars since World War II, according to William Blum, chart by Stephen St. Angelo, which is actually insane. 251 conflicts and wars since the 1990s. You can see right here is a chart. 1942, there was 46,000 tons for unpledged or free. Growth trajectory, 3,500 tons. Silver shortage, 10% monthly increase. Then you have, and that's the one that was highlighted. But then you have the growth trajectory with 40,000 tons is 13,000 silver shortage annually for war. Of the total 112,000 tons mentioned above, 46,000 tons of the free or unpledged silver has been committed as a loan to the Defense Department. of 1943, our military needs for silver would become pressing. The nearest estimate for silver requirements for essential war orders, other than for bus bars between the two services, is that the military and the Navy, as of today, is 3,500 tons per year. The demand is going up at the rate of 5 to 10% monthly, indicating an essential demand of 5,000 tons shortly after the new year and an annual increase thereafter of approximately 3,500 tons. If we project the war for 5 years from now, this would represent an average of approximately 13,000 tons annually, which indicates the likelihood of utilizing most or all of the present treasury stocks. Of course, there would still be available a total of domestic production of 2,000 tons annually, plus the probable annual imports of 3,000 tons. So you have military devouring silver, 2,000 tons domestically production, and 13,000 tons of silver used for military. So then you could also incorporate this to how this, or why, I guess, the COMEX could flood the market with all of these imaginary paper contracts pretending there's this much physical, because the amount of silver, not only for industrial purposes, but also investment purposes. A lot of people don't even think about the investment side of things as well, which, if you guys don't think could affect the price, look what Wall Street Silver did. Actually, rest in peace, Herbert Hunt, one of the Hunt brothers, died, I think, yesterday? Or no, this was May 3rd. Yeah, Herbert Hunt, the billionaire, one of the Hunt brothers who cornered the market in 1985, or 1980, sorry. He died at the age of 95. Overthrowing other people's governments, the master list. The instances of the United States overthrowing or attempting to overthrow a foreign government since the Second World War, which the star or asterisk indicates successful ouster of a government. So you have the ones that were successful: Iran, 1953, Guatemala, 1954, British Guinea, 1953 to 64, Iraq, 1963, Cambodia, 1955 to 1970, Bolivia, 1964, Panama, 1989, Nicaragua, 1981 to 1990, Fiji, 1987, Portugal, 1974 to 1976. So, you can pause and check out all this if you want. The whole point is that total number is 57, successful 36, unsuccessful 21. U.S. government batting an average of successful coups is 63%. 63%. Where does a lot of this silver go? Imagine taking your silver to work with you on the bottom of the ocean floor every day. Did you know that in 1958, Yardney manufactured silver batteries for 19 intercontinental and intermediate range missiles? Link to source in the comments. That's pretty interesting. And then when you realize that there's up to 11,000 ounces of silver in a missile, what was it? It was a torpedo. Sorry, the torpedo. They covered an article about that as well. 11,000 ounces in a torpedo, which is pretty insane. And then you could say there's 500 ounces of silver in a Tomahawk missile. It's like 200 ounces. It was the medium of most missiles, but goes up to that. You could see why this or something like this is concerning. And then, not only that, place that within the same idea and time frame of all the new wars. Because this is going back to the 1940s. We're talking about 1942, there was 46,000 tons. But now we're in all these new wars. And when silver is used for war, that's not recycled. When they drop that monster box of Eagles, that Tomahawk missile that gets obliterated in the Earth's crust, that's never recycled. How many rockets and missiles were exchanged just the first day of the Israel-Palestine stuff? How much silver is being just obliterated, never being recycled? I mean, it's already used mainly for industry, meaning it's hardly ever recycled, where gold is always remelted, rescrapped, reused, because it's used for mainly bars and coins and jewelry. So it gets pawned and melted down to more bars and coins and jewelry. But silver, on the other hand, is thrown away in landfills or at the bottom of the ocean, or obliterated into a million pieces, from a missile or whatever. Most silver isn't recycled. So we're looking at a situation that's only going to increase as the silver shortage gets worse and as the world is finding more wars. And another thing that they always try to stress as well with Silver Academy is how the United States has put ourselves in a very tough situation since we are reliant on silver from everywhere else. Right, we are relying on our enemies to give us the silver, and when we're talking about war, you can see how that could be a huge problem. If it was for solar panels or EVs, we could probably work something out. But when we're talking about silver winning wars, of course, you could see why there's a problem there. And then this could even tie into the BRICS nations, where Andy Schectman is talking about like the Belt Road Initiative and how there's this digital currency backed by physical commodities, and why all of these countries in the BRICS nations are buying so much silver. Which country was that? I think it was Iran. Was it Iran that they imported 256% more silver than last year? And then you have Russia. Or no, it was India. Sorry, I don't know. I had a brain fart right there. India imported 256% more silver than last year as of this February. Then you have Russia buying boatloads of gold and silver, record-breaking amount of gold. Then you have China, which is the largest importer of silver, focusing on silver now, which they actually did. They are dropping gold and taking their focus into silver, saying that silver is actually a better investment. It's cheaper. So you have all of these countries in the BRICS nations, and not only just the BRICS nations, all of the most powerful countries, the wealthiest billionaires, Warren Buffett, all these other billionaires buying silver. It's not ironic. There's no coincidence. This is not coincidental. It's also not crazy to wonder why the U.S. Defense Department raided our silver stockpiles late last year. So anyways, yeah, I just wanted you for you guys to really understand this and really start to think more logically and rationally on what's really going on. And I'm sure it goes a lot deeper than even just this. No pun intended. Deep sea silver demand tripled. Unmanned water vehicles powered by silver. It goes much deeper, folks. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. We have a lot more to talk about, so stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe. If you guys want to purchase gold, silver, platinum, palladium, slayer@milesfranklin.com. Email me, or you can call me, 330-485-6172. I'll be happy to talk to you. We could talk silver. You can make your orders. I'll work with you. I'm going to start doing flash sales and lots of different stuff. I promise you guys it will be worth it. I'll start rewarding those that are consistent clients. I'll start giving discounts to those who purchase more, or maybe after like 5 orders or something, I'll give you a better discount. I promise you guys will not regret working with me. I will do my best to make it the most beneficial place for you to buy from. I promise I will work with you on that. And I could even do it on an individual type of one-to-one basis or per person. Like if you're someone who really I start talking to and, we build a relationship, and maybe I can offer you something that I wouldn't offer the person that just emailed me for the first time. This is all brand new. I'm starting to mess around with this because obviously, it would be me taking less of the commission, but if you're someone who's consistently working with me, then I would be willing to do that. See what I'm saying? I'm trying to just find ways to reward those that are, that are good clients, and especially since you are all my subscribers and watch my channel, it's more personal anyways. You're not just a random person calling me. I know you watch my videos. So I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.